do if you can't resolve an issue at the mediation table? You should only accept an agreement that is better than your partner. So before you think you can't resolve an issue using mediation, do you have what it takes to settle aside the mediation? Today I'll be talking about the Batna, BATNA. In mediation, the Batna stands for Best Alternative to Negotiated Agreement. It is a concept developed by negotiation experts like Roger Fisher and Williams in their book titled Getting to Yes. Your partner, which is BATNA, is the best course of action you can take if the mediation does not result in agreement. Remember, not all mediation gets resolution instantly. Now, what is your best alternative to a mediated agreement? Let's say your partner serves as your backup plan or your walkaway option if mediation doesn't work. For example, if you are negotiating a workplace dispute, your partner might be filing a formal complaint, resigning, or taking up another job, or going to the court system, depending on which options give you the most benefit if your mediation fails. So why is the not very important in the mediation? It gives clarity, helps you know your minimum acceptable outcome. It strengthens the mediation. The stronger your partner, the more leverage you have. Your partner prevent bad agreement. If the proposed agreement is worse than you know you are not getting off or you're not walking away, you better sorry, you are best off walking away if your proposed agreement is worse than your partner. Your partner encourages realistic expectations. Parties compare offers with the partner to decide whether to settle or not. In short, the partner is the plan B that protects you if mediation doesn't succeed, and it guides you in deciding whether an agreement is worth accepting or not. I want to give you an example of a partner in mediation. For example, in a workplace conflict. For example, two employees, pardon me, I'm using Sarah and James. Sarah and James are in the mediation over unfair workload distribution. That's for an example. What is Sarah's goal? Sarah's goal, she wants a fairer workload and possibly a pay rise. Why the goal of James is he wants recognition for extra hours and less time. What is Sarah's partner in this situation? For example, the issue of Sarah and James were taken to the mediation table, and they've weighed the options that, okay, if mediation fails, she can file a formal complaint to the HR or apply for a new job or she has already had an offer. What will be the Batna for James in case the mediation fails? James can request a transfer to another department or seek an overtime compensation through the HR policies. Why it matters? If Sarah is offered only a small work adjustment in mediation, but her job offer elsewhere, is much more better, she might choose Batna leave the company. If James is offered recognition and reduced over time, and that's very, very better than Batna. That's a transfer request. He might likely accept the agreement. Each persons have compared the mediation outcome to their partner. So if the agreement is better than the partner, they settle. If it is worse than the partner, they walk away. Partner stand for worst, your best alternative to mediated agreement. So if your plan B, like you trying to walk away from the mediation because it's fair, and your plan B you have is worse than what you're going to meet aside, that means mediation is good for you to explore at that situation. So if your plan B, which is your Batna, is very worst, that's what we call Watna, WATNA. It stands for worst alternative to mediated agreement. It is the worst possible outcome if mediation fails and no agreement is reached. Why does that matters? It helps party understand the risk of not settling. It encourages more realistic expectations and sometimes pushes people to compromise because the alternative could be more worse than what is expected. That's why mediators often use Watna to gently help parties to see the value of agreement and mediation. We'll continue on the workplace. I talked about Sarah and James. For example, if Sarah thinks she's leaving the company without another job, she may remain unemployed for months, losing income and stability. And what would be the worst alternative to negotiated agreement for James? His what alternative to negotiated agreement would be if the HR refuses to transfer or deny an overtime pay. He may remain stuck in the same situation with no recognition at all. So what are the comparisons between your best alternative to negotiated agreement and your worst alternative to negotiated agreement? Your partner, which is your best alternative to negotiated agreement, is the best backup option, your plan B, if mediation doesn't work. Why your worst negotiated alternative to an agreement will be a worst case scenario if there is no deal reached at all. So together, the partner and now help people in mediation weigh their options. So if I'm in the mediation, is this agreement in the mediation, the resolution, is it better than my plan B? You have to think about that. Could rejecting the mediation agreement resolution push me towards the worst alternative to negotiated agreement? You have to think about that. So your partner, which is the best alternative to negotiated agreement, is the plan B you have if mediation doesn't work out, if you don't get to reach an agreement in the mediation. But before you think about that, mediation wouldn't work, do you have the plan B? Do you have the plan B to say, okay, I want to use mediation if it doesn't work out? Remember, if you don't have a plan B, like you're leaving the mediation table and you think you don't have a plan B, you don't have any option, you will be heading towards your worst alternative to negotiated agreement. So you have to weigh the options. The mediation process. If I don't reach an agreement, do I have a backup plan to settle this case, to settle this matter? So you have to weigh the both options. Like I asked you at the beginning, what will you do if you think you can resolve a matter in the mediation? So you have to weigh the options and know if you have a plan B aside the mediation. Where you don't have, then you give mediation a try.